Right, you lot, a change in flavour today. First and foremost, you're not just seeing me on my very small head, you can actually see my shoulders, which is a change. But I'm going to talk about Premier League predictions for the 2021 season. Of course, including West Ham, but having a look at some of the other teams and thinking, how are you really going to do? I've got West Brom at 20. I think they've played some good football in the Championship. Pereira is going to be good, but they've lost Grady D and Garner, and hopefully that remains the case. I think there's a couple of their older players like Kieran Gibbs that are leaving, so they'll need replacing as well. They've lost a key man in Nathan Ferguson, who's gone to Palace. So they've actually lost some of their decent players. But I just think at the moment, there isn't enough movement, there isn't enough indication for me to see that suggests that they're going to really stay in the division next season and cause a number of teams any issues. At number 19, I've put Brighton and Hove Albion. They've made some good signings, correct? They have made some good signings. They've shown some form of improvement. I think Lamptey's been a good signing from Chelsea, and he's obviously coming to the team. I think Lallana could be a very good signing for them, potentially. Might be their key player next season. You've got Veltman with Champions League experience at Ajax. So, on the face of it, they have got some good players. But I feel that they are very reliant on a number of key assets within their team. So you've got the back three or the back two, very good aerially. Webster, Burn, Dunk will get goals. You know, they will get goals from set pieces, and they are very reliant on them going forward as they are defending. And the same can be said for up front. You've got Neil Maupay, who has taken to the league very well. But other than that, they've got an ageing Glenn Murray on the bench. They've struggled to really get good strikers in. Fulham, Scotty Parker's Fulham. A weird sort of tactic the other night. I think they sort of moved away from some of their possession-based play and did show elements of it, but sat very deep against Brentford and knew the danger. So Scotty Parker isn't someone who's going to stick to his guns too much necessarily. He will do what's required to get the results to stay in the league. And they've been relegated, and he's spoken very much about them changing their mentality, and he's brought in a psychologist, and they've looked to try and change that. But it's one thing trying to do that within the Championship, but they have to maintain that level of momentum and confidence in the Premier League. Number 17, I've crossed it out twice, but I've gone with Aston Villa. Jack Grealish FC. They're a decent side. They've made a lot of signings. Douglas Luiz is a very impressive player for them. I think Tyrone Mings is a very good defensive player. Other creative players like Conor Hourihane and Grealish, they've got the bare bones of a good side. They've got some players to come back in Wesley, but I don't think the quality's there for Villa, in my opinion. I think other teams will strengthen. They could lose Jack Grealish, who's scored a number of their goals this season. The play goes through him a lot. And I think when you take an outlet like that out, despite even having other decent players, you've got to replace those goals. I've gone for Crystal Palace 16th. They're not too far off where they finished this season. Palace is the one team that I look at and think, yes, I've put you 16th because of Roy Hodgson. He's very defensively organised. He's got Wilfried Zaha. Could completely change next season. Palace are a strange club where they just seem to be not in free fall, not in ascendancy, but in the middle, just sort of staying very stable, not looking to kick on and push on. I've got Newcastle 15th, which is probably quite harsh on them because I think that they had a decent season under Steve Bruce. I think the failed takeover is going to impact the club as a whole. It's a question of whether Steve Bruce can add more quality. Saint-Maximin is a fantastic signing, but it really depends on Newcastle's ability to bring in another few players that are going to add potentially in that midfield area. I know they've got Sean and Matty Longstaff, but a couple of those players could go. Now, I've gone West Ham 14th. Not great at all from us. Listen, I'd love us to be a top 10 team. I think that's the target for West Ham, no doubt. But I haven't seen enough from the transfer window so far to indicate that we're going to go for the transfer targets that we need in order to push on. I can't see us, unless we seriously deal with the left back and the right back areas, that we're going to push on as a club. I genuinely can't believe that. I think there's always an argument for number 10. You know, if you're not willing to spend the money on Easy or Ben Rama or even up front, which is another key position, then the left back and the right back have to be resolved for me. I think Ben Johnson will do a job at right back. I think he'll be very good, but listen, he's always one injury away, and we know his injury record. Left back for me is untenable really for either Creswell or Masuaku. For me, you just have to go and spend that money irrespective of what that fee is, because I think if West Ham can get that left back position right, I think we solve a lot of our issues. Number 13, I've put Chrissy Wilder's Sheffield United. Sheffield United come up and done a brilliant job this year. I think their unpredictability, their work rate helps them in a lot of games. These players aren't the most talented, but they certainly understand the system. They get the best from it. They know how to score goals. They know how to defend. I think that very strange 3 at the back, wing back, but allowing the centre backs to join in it, that very bizarre. It allows them to have the overload in the box, and that's why they score a number of goals. But for me, they're not going to do as well as this season. I think the element of surprise took a lot of teams. I think Sheffield United you can beat on the counter. I think when we saw them play against Leicester, Leicester were very, very good at it. They had Jamie Vardy and Harvey Barnes, people with pace, the 1-2 touch, the very directness of that counter attack will cause them to come undone. In 12th place, I've gone for Everton. Everton are a really, I don't want to say a strange team, but they are a team that spent a lot of money, have got top class manager in, should be a lot higher than they are, and seem to just always falter around that level of mediocrity. I think since they come back from Project Restart, they struggled in a lot of games. They weren't really clinical in attack. Richarlison's bailed them out of a number of games for them. They've got a lot of deadwood there. Gylfi Sigurdsson offers a lack of pace in midfield, and I think Ancelotti wants a very mobile midfield. I put them at 12 because they're in a really odd position where they could really, really struggle this season. You could see them losing consecutive games because Ancelotti's unable to get the team moving in the direction that he wants them to. So for me, they're going to have to be 12. Number 11, Southampton. Southampton, I really enjoy watching that side of West Ham as a neutral. I think Ralph Hasenhüttl's got them playing a real high-intensity football, which causes a lot of teams some issues. I mean, I can't believe the bloke lost 9-0 to Leicester and somehow managed to turn it around, but I think he's got buy-in from the club. Can't overlook Danny Ings in this situation. Danny Ings is probably one of the most clinical strikers in the country. If you look at his stats for the number of goals he scores against the number of shots he has, I think he's the top. So in a team that isn't on the front foot as much, he's up against teams that are a lot stronger than them. You need players like that, and Danny Ings is one of those players that will help Southampton to do well next season. But I'm not sure whether it's sustainable. Now, the new boys have just done an interview with All Leeds TV, and I've had to do a little bit of homework on Leeds as a club and as the Stein play and Bielsa. And it's interesting what Joe said to me. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if we finished top half. And I can see where he's coming from, and that's why I've put Leeds 10th. What's frightening for me as a West Ham fan, if they come and play against us, is they don't just attack with 1 or 2. It's not a predictable attack. You've got the fullbacks bombing on to support the wingers. You've then got 3 attackers centrally, and then you've got a number 10 to pick up any loose balls. Leeds will score a lot of goals this season. Number 9, I've gone with Sean Dyche's Burnley. Sean Dyche is a manager that doesn't get the credit he deserves, in my opinion. I like the way he manages his teams. He understands the limitations and he understands their strengths, and that's why they're able to do as well as they can, and why people can't seem to understand why they're doing that well with the players they have on paper. Listen, both fullbacks have great delivery. Jay Rodriguez has been a great signing for them. He's mobile up front. He moves off Chris Wood, very similar to how Ashley Barnes will do. And he has strikers that fit into that mould. I think if Dyche does that Burnley, which I believe he will, I think he'll hit the ground running. He's got a good little team. He's got a good little team there. His defence is solid. Tarkowski, Pope. Listen, if he can bring in any more quality, I think Burnley will finish 9th. Number 8, I've written this down, but I'm a bit like, I don't know if I should have, because Wolves, I really like how Wolves play. Coutinho is a fantastic dictator of the tempo. It causes, opposition such issues when you've got a player like that can keep the ball so well. Wolves really thrive off of 2 wide players in their attack, Jimenez down the middle, and with the centre-backs the ability to ping a ball cross-field very accurately on the counter. That's why they get so many goals. So I think Wolves will actually do well in a cup competition next season. I don't think it's a case of the Premier League. I'm not sure they'll push on. I'm really not sure. They've had a tough old season. If they win the Europa League, they're in the Champions League. That's a different element to it. I know Wolves have got massive financial backing. Then it may force the hand of the club to go and buy new players. They've got the super agent George Mendes. They could go and start pushing for the sixth place. Leicester at number 7. Leicester will drop out this season, in my opinion. I think we saw they ran out of steam massively in the second half of this season. They did very well in the beginning. I think I've heard this a lot. They've got one of the most balanced midfields in the Premier League. Ndidi, James Maddison, who they missed in that second half, particularly after Project Restart. Clinical striker in Jamie Vardy, Golden Boot winner. Strong defence. Soyuncu's very very composed. Ben Chilwell gets forward a lot. It's got great delivery. They're very good in a lot of areas. Schmeichel. It's very difficult to see where Leicester slip up. I think whilst Brendan Rodgers is a good manager, we've seen particularly at Liverpool that I think he goes on these runs of being very strong. And then if he loses form, he's one of the managers that can't sort of halt that slide. Number 6, I've got Tottenham Hotspur. I don't really, God, I hate them. I absolutely despise Tottenham. I really, really do. But if I'm being neutral, I think Mourinho will stabilise Tottenham. I think he's going to bring in Højbjerg, which will add a little bit of grit to that midfield. He's got some good creative players in there in Lo Celso, who I think is probably one of their better midfielders. Up front, we know Tottenham's strengths. You know, Harry Kane and Heung-min Son are frightening. I mean, Harry Kane may be one of the most complete number 9s in the Premier League. I think someone like Heung-min Son is a difficult player to mark against because he's so quick. He can come off the wing, he can play up front, he's got great movement. They will score goals 100% Tottenham if they can keep those two fit. I honestly genuinely don't care. I hope they don't. They've lost for Tongan. Vormouth obviously gone out, so they'll have to possibly. I mean, they've got Davinson Sanchez and Alderweireld, not bad centre-back pairing. I think Danny Rose wants to come back. I mean, I think they'll do all right. I don't think they'll do amazing. I think this market, I can't see Daniel Levy spending too much money. Now, I've got for Arsenal at number 5. Arsenal under Arteta are a different proposition to Emery. I think whilst I read this, having Aubameyang sign a long-term contract or at least for 2-3 years will be a massive boost for them. The goals come through him. That's a fact. You know, he's done really well with a team that struggled. He's managed to get Granit Xhaka quite a disciplined player now. Ceballos' work rate's gone up. You know, he's eking the most out of someone like David Luiz, and they've got other players to come in. I think Arsenal will finish 5th. I think potentially they'll push. I think they'll push Champions League place. I don't think the money's there for them to make the necessary adjustments they need to compete with the Premier League or to compete with Champions League. But certainly, I think Arteta's possibly the right coach for them at this time. Number 4, I've got Chelsea, Fat Frank's team. So Fat Frank's brought in obviously a lot of players. Ziyech, Werner. He's looking at Kai Havertz. He wants to bring in either Tagliafico or Chilwell. So he's going to make a lot. He's made a lot of signings. A lot of money's going up. Now, hopefully, it won't be Declan Rice. I don't believe it will be. So their issues defensively. I think they'll push. They'll be 4th because they'll score too many goals. But there's something wrong with Rudiger. He's arguably their best defender. Christensen has lapses of concentration. Zuma for me is not good enough for a Chelsea side. Kepa's probably not even good for a Premier League side. Number 3, oh God, I hate it, but I'll go Manchester United. Manchester United because I think, I don't know whether I'll speak too soon here, I think they will get Jadon Sancho. I know they've said they wouldn't, but I think they will. We've seen what happens with Dortmund. Aubameyang went to Arsenal. In all likelihood, if Sancho wants to move, he'll get it. Even if they don't get it, I think Man United are growing into a team that don't concede a lot of goals. And listen, I don't rate Maguire or Lindelof, but I think they've got it spot on with Wan-Bissaka. I think they play those two holding midfielders in Pogba and Matic, which gives them cover. They know their weaknesses. And I think going forward, they're only going to improve, unfortunately. They won't win the league. They won't win the league because their defence isn't good enough. and I think against other teams, top 6, top 7 teams, they'll get unstopped. They will concede goals. Number 2, I'm sure you lot have been waiting for this. This has been a long old video. Liverpool. I'm going to go Liverpool as number 2, which is a bit of a bailout, I've got to be honest. But what Jurgen Klopp managed to pull off last season was phenomenal in terms of consistency, in terms of, listen, they blew some teams out of the water, didn't they? They were real horrible, other than West Ham, who played really well against them at Anfield. But they are a really hard team to play against Liverpool. They will score goals. I don't think defensively they're amazing. They showed lapses, particularly when they won the league against people like Manchester City. But largely speaking, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, I know they strengthened with Simicast now at left back as a sub. So I think Jurgen's emphasis now is on creating strength and depth. So potentially he could go for a cup. I think he probably now is looking to be a bit more well equipped for the cup competitions. And then first, it's going to be Manchester City will win the title. Now, Manchester City have Man City have obviously brought in, Ake to potentially replace Otamendi. I think he'll form a really strong partnership with Laporte. Phil Foden will come through for David Silva and impress. I think he's ready for the league. He will do very well. Ferran Torres is an unknown entity to me. I don't know what he's going to do, but to replace Sane, they've been very resourceful with their money, which is a slight underhand comment given their FFP allegations, but nonetheless, they've done quite well. But ultimately, there are a few weak spots in that Manchester City team. I think their fullbacks typically are, but when you've got Kyle Walker, Cancelo, and Mendy and Zinchenko, they're not bad options to have. I think Mendy has lapses in concentration, but is very good at getting forward. I've seen Cancelo actually deputise on the left, Walker on the right, and they did that against Madrid. That could be a sort of resolution for this season. Pep's a winner. Pep's won everything, pretty much everything you can win in the game. He'll want to get one back on Jurgen. And I think whilst Liverpool played much better over 2 seasons, I wouldn't say over 2, that's probably a bit. Whilst Liverpool played well the season before last, obviously last season they ground out a lot of results, and that's how they were able to win the title. But I think it's going to be difficult for Jurgen to maintain that. We've seen at Dortmund he's done very well over a season and then over 2 seasons, but there was that period at Dortmund where they fell off a little bit. I don't think it'll happen at Liverpool because I think the players are there's too much quality in there, and I think they're young, they still got the energy and they still believe in the system, and I think that's going to be key for them to maintain their position. But I think we'll see a little bit of a reverse of last season. Yeah, let's go over it because you would have forgotten easily by now. Even I'm getting a little bit tired. I've forgotten what I said. West Brom at number 20, Brighton and Hove Albion 19, Fulham 18, Villa 17, Palace 16th, Newcastle 15th, West Ham 14th, Sheffield United 13th, Everton 12th, Southampton 11th, Leeds 10th, Burnley 9th, Wolves 8th, Leicester 7th, Tottenham 6th, Arsenal 5th, Chelsea 4th, Manchester United 3rd, and Liverpool 2nd, with Manchester City winning the league. That was my Premier League predictions for next season. If you think I'm wrong, and again, if you think this bloke's talking rubbish, by all means, write your comments. I'll read them and I will take note. But listen, football's about opinions, so get them in, put them down below. Like, subscribe, share, do what you need to. This channel is gonna be building in the next few months. It's gonna be big. We're gonna have some really good guests on across all fan channels, potentially ex-football players, all of these types of things. You can get them on the West Ham way. I'll be here, and until next time, take care.